This is BullionMax, the podcast. I'm Mark Allen, along with our co-host, Sean Reynolds, who is the customer service manager for BullionMax. Sean, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Mark.
And we go to Detroit, Michigan, where we're going to spend some time with Mike Mandel. He's a TV host and blogger and purveyor of Rethinking the Dollar. And we're going to find out all about that. Mike, welcome to BullionMax.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me on, and definitely looking forward to having this chance to discuss, and as well as excited to continue to further partner with BullionMax. So thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. I'm really curious. Your background is not necessarily in the financial arena, but you have a really interesting background in professional sports.
Yes. So how I came across the subject matter, I'm still trying to figure out to this day. But in my former life, played professional sports, and so I had a chance to travel and be paid in a variety of currencies. And knowing, living in Iceland, getting paid in the krona, down to Argentina in the peso, and Switzerland with the Swiss franc, and all those different currencies, it led to me having to understand exchange rates, as well as my curiosity for just monetary history. And I started doing a lot of investigative work and realized that there are a lot of things that add up. And we here in the United States of America was living a lot better and able to have a lot more privilege because of our currency, i.e. the reserve status of the dollar, and really got me to just, questioning everything and rethinking ultimately what fiat currency was, and never really learned in school the importance of sound money or lawful money from a historical standpoint. And so just started reading books, and then I got into interviewing people, and here I am now, 8 years, and still trying to educate myself and basically helping people navigate through this transition we're all experiencing right now. So it's been a fun ride.
Is this transition happening soon, do you think?
It's my personal opinion that we're in the midst of it now. And depending on which angle you want to look at it from, I think it's going to be a long, drawn out phase of just basically our monetary system shifting to something new, as well as there being a new entities that would prefer to oversee things rather than just have the West call the shot still in this unipolar world that a lot of these politicians are talking about nowadays. But ultimately speaking, we're in the midst of a transition, and it's going to be very uncomfortable, I believe, for those who are not aware of the distinctions between fiat currency and sound money. And so that's a part of my message. Just begin thinking about something, and in particular, the most important area is your financial matters. So yeah, we're in the beginning phases of it, I believe.
Do you think people in general understand this, that they are aware of the financial markets going up, down, sideways? Last week, I couldn't believe the market. One day it lost 2,000 points, and then it went up 200.
Right.
Some people were saying it's just a correction, but it's all over the board. It's crazy.
Right. It's just from my experience and having a chance to actually, because sometimes I actually get out on the streets and interview people and actually talk to people, directly. And your average person has no clue as to what's going on, from the macro picture, even down to just our local economy here. And so it has to do with the lack of education and what was not taught. And so I love to use as a reference on my side, went from preschool all the way to a college degree. And I never received any useful training on just finance in general, outside of the practical things of just how to balance a checkbook, of which we don't really do that anymore. But the average person has no clues as what's going on, just because, and here in the United States of America, we've been very privileged to have to be able to just work and trust other people, i.e. the whole financial advisor, things of that nature, with our financial futures, while we just focus on working and earning and trying to save, even if we can do that these days. So the average person is not too concerned with it. But now, given the current conditions we're experiencing with inflation and all the economic tremors that I love to refer to that you're mentioning in reference to the equities market, more people are starting to ask questions and wake up. So I think there's still time to reach people, and that's kind of what I try to do on my end.
It's like getting rid of the tunnel vision, working so hard to just keep your household afloat. That used to be enough. But now,
Correct.
Since that's harder and harder to do all the time, the game has changed. And fortunately, people are starting to wake up and, look a little outside of those blinders and get educated and take action, do something different instead of just repeating the same actions and hoping for a different outcome. We all know that's the definition of a lunatic.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's so much uncertainty out here nowadays, and it has a lot to do with current economic conditions we're experiencing. And so, of course, depending on what side of the spectrum you're looking from, whether you're a sophisticated investor, you're even concerned because you're watching and waiting and see how the market responds to the FOMC meeting, which is 48 hours away or so. But then again, your average person who has no clue as to what's going on, they're just concerned with trying to actually pay bills and live, and maybe stock something aside. But even that, people are being forced to go into debt even further now. Credit card numbers are up and things like that. So it's a lot of uncertainty out here, man.
One of the things that we talk about, of course, here on BullionMax is the purchase of precious metals, particularly gold and silver. What's your stand on that? Is that a good thing to do right now?
That is my primary mantra for the show, is to get your weight up. And so everybody that's part of my community, they know when I hashtag get your weight up, they know exactly what I'm referring to, just because I love to, as I mentioned, try to share what I call monetary literacy, which is basically taking people back throughout history just to let people realize what has been considered money for thousands of years. And in comparison to today, which is basically IOU nothings, of which central banks have basically convinced us are actual currency units. But ultimately speaking, gold and silver it will be the last thing standing, I think, when everything blows through. And silver in particular is my favorite, just because I consider the most undervalued of all time. It has reached nowhere near its previous all-time highs. And so when something breaks or when something gives, I think people who were able to save in true lawful money will be very pleased. So everyone on my side know the importance of silver, and that's why I'm excited to, through BullionMax, to be able to offer people a chance to, get something affordable in their possession. So it's never been more important.
Put on a few ounces, so to speak.
Exactly. Get heavy as you can.
Yeah. Everybody else is trying to lose weight, but
right.
Gaining silver and gold weight, that's important.
Can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong. Can we go wrong? I mean, that's maybe it's not going to happen today. Maybe it'll happen tomorrow.
Oh, it's a long, drawn-out process, and over the last 8 years of me trying to just encourage people and remind people of the difference between those two currency units, there, a lot of people have become discouraged, rather, because the prices of silver, I'm looking at it right now, it's $19.38, and so people say, Mike, when's the price going to go to the moon? I'm like, well, it's not going to be an overnight thing. You have to be patient. We're going through something that's going to be systemic in nature, and my prayer is that it doesn't reach all-time highs no time soon, because it provides us more time to be able to accumulate, but then also once it surpasses all-time highs and shoots up into territories we've never experienced, we don't know what type of world we're going to be living in at that point. And so I'm in no rush for this transition, but I do realize that, it's a long, drawn-out marathon, and patience has never been more important now, just because we don't know what we're entering into. So I think however you position it with people, they can understand that it's a long-term game and it's not in short.
I like to hear you say that, Mike, because I think people who have failed when investing in gold and silver did not hold it long enough. They thought they could flip it, or maybe they overspent what they really should have and maybe bought more metal than they should have, and then they ended up cashing it out before they didn't have something else to pay those bills, or something came up, or whatever it was. But in almost every case I can think of where someone failed, and perhaps failed miserably, they just didn't hold it long enough. Right. They were just expecting some miracle cure overnight, and to expect that of metals is kind of odd, because it's always been the steady Eddie, more your bedrock type of investment. Lucky if it moves 15 cents a month, 10 years ago for silver. Right. So it's not for the impatient, but you know what? I think those who are patient are going to be rewarded, just as you say, it is nowhere near what its high was at one point. And let's face it, you could double, triple, quadruple your investment. I mean, what else can you do that with? You just have to be patient.
Right. I take it even further, because I don't even like to use the word investing when it comes to accumulating gold and silver, just because on my standpoint, I try to focus on it, and I keep in the back of my mind that, silver, if it is money, and gold as well, if they are actual monetary units, that will be held accountable for every single fiat note at some point in the future. It's just more so a matter of like, if you're holding on to an ounce of silver, we price it in USD. But then if you're in another country, you price it in the euro, or right now we're witnessing all-time highs in a lot of failing currencies right now.
Right.
So those are no longer the measuring standards for those nations. You would probably use something more stable, i.e. gold or silver. And so I tell people on this side that, use the same mindset as a person who's probably already in the country that the currency is failing. Then of course you wouldn't be looking at it as an investment at that point. You'll look at it as the true standard of which you price everything else in. And so that right there to me is just dialing down deeper to really give you a sense of how important it is. Because if you look at it as something you get in and get out of, then you're trading it basically, rather than actually having it as insurance policy that you don't want the house to burn down to actually have to file a claim. So
to use a sports analogy, it's, in golf, it's the short game. Okay. That's my understanding. That's where you win or you lose. It's on the green.
Right.
And the long game is what we need in accumulating gold and silver. And that's what the both of you have just said.
Right. And I think to look at it from a long-term perspective, holding gold and silver will be even more important, just because as the world is going through a reset right now, what we're talking about, what we're experiencing here in the US with the market volatility and things of that nature, that's just, the US problem. But then again, it's happening in every single country because the central bank policy and everything that they're doing, they're orchestrating what I consider to be the great monetary and fiscal collision. It's no way you can tighten on top of having extremely indebted nations at the same time, and something not go wrong. And so we're witnessing the move into gold with everything happening out with Russia and China and all those new blocks that are forming there. And it's my suspicion that at some point they're going to announce some form of a standard, and the USD will not be included in that. And more than likely, to establish credibility back into the system, is going to have to be anchored on something real and tangible. And of course, we all know what that is. It's going to be more likely gold or some type of commodity basket or something like that. But then again, silver in particular follows along because it's, gold's little brother in a sense. So looking at it from that perspective as well, lets me know that we haven't seen no fireworks yet, but something's coming, probably a lot sooner than we would all want.
Our guest is Mike Manwell, and he is the host and creative force behind Rethinking the Dollar. We're going to take a time out. I just wanted to talk to Sean for a second. Sean, as people call into BullionMax and you're talking to some of these people who are asking questions, are people asking, how do I protect my family from, I'm going to use a word that I believe Mike came up with, the de-dollarization of the world?
Yeah, most definitely. No, they didn't use that word, of course.
Right.
But yes, they certainly do want to protect their family, first and foremost. I speak with a lot of grandparents, and a lot of them are saying, this isn't for me. I'm not buying this for me. I'm buying this for my kids. I'm buying this for my kids' kids. I know I'm going to leave this. Now, that's the ultimate long game when you get right down to it. This isn't for me. But they do recognize the importance of what we were talking about, of getting those ounces, holding those metals and having them for their future. It's just, it is money when you get right down to it. It's not, it's not day trading. It's not, you get invested into the market, so to speak. Yes, because it's worth what the current market rate is for the metal, and who knows what that will be in the future. I agree with Mike 100%. Silver is way undervalued when you consider how much we use it for. You consider all the solar panels that are out there. You consider all the new electric cars that we're making. And there's a lot of electronics inside those cars, and you can bet those battery connectors are probably big hunks of silver. So yeah, people are definitely asking that question. How can I protect my family? They've heard enough to make the call, which is great, because yeah, this is how you do that. You
Right.
just need to get educated and you need to start.
And that's the other part of BullionMax. You're not there to sell somebody. You're there to educate and maybe guide them a little bit in their purchase. And there's no hard sell other than the metal itself.
No, and I love speaking with people who are new to investing, getting them educated, and usually after about a 5-minute conversation, they know how the world works. They can differentiate between products based on premiums and weights and purity percentages and a coin versus a round versus a bar and all of that stuff. It's important to know the difference, develop that strategy for purchasing, but also know your exit strategy as well. Why are you doing this? Okay, protection is protection, great. But what are your specific goals? What do you want to do? Let's find products that help you with that.
And you will help people do that.
Yes, absolutely. And I enjoy doing that. It's very rewarding work helping people to help themselves.
Got it. That's a good segue for us as we talk more with Mike Manwell from Rethinking the Dollar. Do people in general, do they talk to you about, protecting their families and wanting to protect their family from any fiscal meltdown that many people are predicting?
All right. Yeah, that is a good question there. So yes, and that's where I have a talk show in the evenings where I actually like to hear from people directly. And so people call in or in a chat, just ask questions, more specific questions about financial matters, of which I make sure I let them know I'm not a financial advisor, can't really tell you what to do, but I can give you some scenarios of what has already occurred based upon history. And from that, you can kind of formulate a strategy of some kind. But people ask all the time, how much, what should I do, vice versa. And I refer to the fact that if you use Why My Republic as an older event of just a fiat currency going belly up, the people who are actually able to redeem their fiat and for real money actually fare better in the long run than those who were completely oblivious to it. Then you look at Zimbabwe within the last 10 years. That's a great example. Venezuela, as of right now to this day still, there's been more than enough examples as to where if you don't understand the distinction between fiat and money, you're going to fall victim because you're going to be the one that is caught in the middle, not knowing what or what to do. And then on top of that, to Sean, what you mentioned about giving people encouraging information, I remind people that we used to be on a gold standard, i.e. silver standard, but throughout history, we've shifted away from that. And so it's up to each and every individual to create their own standard. Now, once you have the education and realize what money has been and what it is today, then at that point, how do you formulate your strategy? Whether you use the bimetallic route with a little bit of gold or a little bit of silver, or if you want to go all out and just become a silver bug or whatever you want to call them, and go to silver route just because of the potential upside. Anywhere I go in those two categories, the probability of you losing out in the end is not too high. So you'll fare well by having exposure to that, just because, as I mentioned before, it's real and it's tangible. But I love to refer people or tell people that it's your responsibility to be able to redeem those notes because they were always meant to be redeemable. And so I love using props, just like right here, just gotta keep it handy. I got a silver certificate here that I love to bring up. And so I got all types of props that hopefully get people's attention, but it says redeemable for silver. And ever since this was taken out of circulation, people, especially the younger generation, they have no clue about that type of stuff. So it sparks their interest and, takes them more down that educational hole that I love to help people basically start.
I'm surprised you don't have some of those Zimbabwe dollars,
I do.
They're some
$5 trillion.
They're over there.
I'm looking at it right there. I can go get them.
Okay, so they're there.
They're there.
I'm curious about
kind of like party favors or something like that. They're just such a joke. The number of zeros on there, and here you go, you buy that for $75.
Exactly. So between those, I have some old Morgans. I got my silver eagles here. I got so and I love using visual aids too. I got graphs and stuff to back all that up as well. So
and Mike, in your own personal portfolio, are you constantly increasing that weight?
Correct. So I even throughout the years have brought my wife on board because she realized and recognized what's at stake, because all the things I was talking about years ago is starting to play out now. And then Mark, earlier you mentioned the de-dollarization process. So by me showing her article after article, it's made it a lot easier for me to allocate more towards metals, and even helped her do it to where she wants to do it for herself and learn. And so it's turned into a family activity that has been very beneficial, to say the least. And even my kids, have their weight up as well. So it's like savings. I mean, how can you not save, by actually getting rid of some of those paper units or digital versions of them, and getting something real that you can feel, and even, hear a little click clack in your hands every now and then.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, trading those dollars in for ounces. That's a very safe way to do that. As you have extra cash, you're not sure that you want to put it in the stock market. You're not sure what you want to do with it. Don't leave it as cash. Don't leave it as dollars. Turn it into ounces of metal.
Right. Good point.
Mike, let's talk about people of color, minorities.
Right.
Historically, they have not invested, and I know that's a word you choose not to use, but they have not been at the forefront of financial freedom. I mean,
Right.
and today, I don't think it matters what color you are, where you're from, anything. People are scrounging to pay $7 for a loaf of bread. Right?
Right.
We have a definite problem. The feds and the government are saying we're taking care of it. It's slow, but we are, reducing it. I know that gas prices, for example, have come down. The blame on the supply side. What about people of color? Should they be investing right now and taking charge of their own lives?
Oh, 100%. And a lot of the events that led to concerns of a lack of savings and everything to play into that happens a lot to do with monetary policy. The wealth gap aspect, as well as the being deprived of education, on top of all the other attributes that happen within the inner cities and whatnot these days. And so I think it boils down to a lack of financial literacy. And so even just from the basic aspects of, when you earn something, how much do you set aside for your future? And of course, there's different categories to that. You can actually have it done for you, or you can do it yourself. But then beyond that, because of this current monetary craziness we're experiencing now, the actual wages earned is not usually enough to actually sustain yourself. And because of inflation and things becoming more problematic, most people are literally, scrounging, as you mentioned, just for the bare minimums. And then you factor in that at this current moment, debt has been used as a way to try to get by because of having easy access to credit and things of that nature. So a lot of people are just confused on actually how to handle their own financial futures, nevertheless, to think about what they should do for their children and things of that nature down the line. So it's very prevalent. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just the way things are now. But I have noticed that because the politicians seem to be getting in trouble with this wealth gap, as well as the income disparities, that they're trying to promote financial literacy right now to the distressed communities in inner cities. At the same time, we're experiencing the transition out of this current system into something else. So I find it to be very odd, but and that's why I think this what has fueled my flyer to help people understand monetary literacy. Because as I mentioned to you, Mark, before we live, that there's a distinction between monetary literacy and financial literacy. Monetary literacy gives you a definition as to what money really is from a historical standpoint. Then once you understand that, it makes it easier to then take it to your financial matters on a day-to-day basis when you're actually earning, your current, your future in fiat notes. You automatically want to have two different categories of what you're choosing to save in. So monetary literacy comes before financial literacy, I think. And unfortunately, we're not being taught neither one of them. And so that's kind of where I think, this show comes in handy, as well as everybody else in the educational space.
Isn't money just the power to be able to buy that loaf of bread? Or
Money,
or that brand new iPhone?
Yes, and that's where, outside of the principles of money, being able to store future wealth as well as have purchasing power today. I can't think of other categories off the top of my head, but
Sure.
money boils down to ideas as well and value delivered, and so it can be a variety of things depending on who you're speaking with, but ultimately it's your energy. Like if you dedicate energy to something, you receive compensation for that energy or time or skill. You would want it to be in something that you can have confidence in, that you can sock it aside and it'll purchase you the same equivalent of transaction of your energy in the future as well. And so that also plays into the literacy side of things. Most people they're not taught it from that angle. So they just look at it as something that comes willy-nilly, and to some people even grows on trees because they're never able to keep a dollar. So
Right.
Well, you got to monetize your mojo.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I've been looking at rethinking the dollar. I have to tell you, some of your headlines, the world is creeping toward de-dollarization. I used that word earlier. The removal of high denomination notes in the USA. So there's no more $10,000 bills.
Right. And so like that's a whole historical lesson right there that is just flew under the radar. Like most people don't know that the $100 bill was not the largest bill in circulation at one point, and bit by bit it was phased out intentionally. And so the question is why? Because at the same time those bills were being removed, so was, I guess, the Coinage Act of 1964 also came into play, where silver was removed. And then we had the Executive Act from 1933, the Great Depression, where gold was, it was made illegal to hold gold. And so everything was strategically done to basically dumb down the masses towards understanding what money was, as they transitioned it into just debt IOUs that I guess we owe back with interest to the Federal Reserve at this current point. So, but those are all just little ways I try to reach people with just catchy titles, as well as trying to explain some things more in depth.
The dollar has been king for almost 100 years in world currency. Last week or the week before, the British pound lost considerable strength to the US dollar.
Right.
And they'd always been on a par. I think it's the lowest exchange rate in almost 30 years, or maybe even more. Do you think this is going to happen with other currencies?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a great point. So it's already underway. Just look at the parity of currencies that's already been broken with the euro, as you mentioned, the pound. And as of right now, even the way the currency basket of the Dixie with the 6 or 7 leading currencies, the way that whole measurement came into existence is, to me, is more of a illusion to have us look at fiat currency strength, when in actuality, all other currencies weighted against the dollar are all trending downward because the dollar is going up. And this has a lot to do with monetary policy, with the Fed basically choking the world off being able to accumulate more dollars. They're having issues and having to sell their currencies to get more dollars. So it's a scramble out there in this fiat world of confusion. But all along, the average person who holds those units end up suffering. And then that goes into more of the monetary literacy side of things. Like, you're holding on to somebody else's liability ultimately. Like, every single fiat currency in your possession is basically a debt paid to you that you would then in return pay to somebody else. To hold a unit long term in this current environment is just, it's going to be disastrous. And so we will see more currency depreciation, just because fiat currencies, if they're not continuously inflated away by, basically the inflation metrics that was supposed to be just a measly 2%. But if that compounding doesn't continue on, then, we have issues with the economies contracting and debt implosion and you name it. So, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Well, I have to tell you, there's so many other things that we can discuss, and I'd like to invite you to come back soon, Mike. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. Love that.
I mean, I'm a big science fiction reader. I think you are too, Sean, aren't you?
Movies.
No?
Love to watch the movies.
Okay, you watch I read the books. But in the books, they talk about credits. They don't use the word dollars. And you have a card and you have your credits on the card. So one of the things that you talk about, Mike, is the end of cash. And I guess maybe we'll just have a credit arrangement of some kind, right?
Yeah, and that's the rebranding of the currencies right now. I think there's over 90 test trials for the central bank digital currencies, which is ultimately just the removal I'm not sure how they're going to pull this off, but the removal of the current banking structure into the hands of a single entity, where the ledger for debit and credits will ultimately be on the Fed's side of things. And so I'm not sure how they're going to squeeze out the commercial banks to pull this off, but obviously it's a part of their strategy. But basically, just taking privatized commercial bank ledgers, put into the Fed's possession, and then bouncing it out to the public through some type of UBI or something like that will probably be in the future. It's unfortunate, but we've been set up for this all along. With gold and silver, then we had redeemable notes, and we had removal of metals to just paper. Then we went to computer digits itself, which is the predominant. Most dollars are digital in nature right now, with very little paper in comparison to the amount of digits. To eventually, at some point, they're going to go solely digital and try to remove cash, because that will be the last measurement of property that people can actually have to use. That provides them privacy and all the other things that a note does bring, even though it's losing purchasing power. But yeah, when that happens, we'll be solely in a digital economy. So that plays into the whole digital asset space that's being talked about right now that a lot of people are excited about.
We won't be able to stash dollars in our mattress anymore.
Right.
We are out of time. Briefly, Sean, somebody calls in, they can talk to you, and you can help show them what they might need in terms of purchasing gold or silver.
It seems like the people are most surprised by the fact that we don't have a minimum order that you have to purchase. And that's great. If there is a minimum, it's spend $199 with us so you're not paying for shipping. Otherwise just wait to get that amount of money and just spend money on your metals. That's the best way for you to add those ounces, is to make sure that you're typically just paying for the metal. Don't pay for shipping.
Got it.
Increase that.
Well, I thank you both for spending some time with us today. Look forward to having you back on the show in the very near future, Mike. Sean, we will see you soon, and we will see you soon as well. By the way, if you're watching us now, we have a subscribe button here on YouTube. Please click that and subscribe to us. That way you'll be able to see each and every fresh episode as it is put out. Thank you again for watching. I'm Mark Allen. We'll see you next episode. Bye-bye for now.